Robot Dad, by Josh Alfred. The diagnosis came on a cold autumn afternoon. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, aggressive and inoperable. For Robert, the prognosis was a death sentence. 6 months, they said, maybe less. His wife, Claire, wept silently beside him, her hands trembling in his. Their 8-year-old daughter, Emily, was too young to understand the gravity of it, but she knew something was wrong. Robert didn't fear death as much as he feared leaving them behind. Claire, who had always believed in his strength, and Emily, who still thought her dad could fix anything. One night, as the family sat in the sterile glow of their living room, a brochure arrived in the mail. Its cover bore the sleek, futuristic logo of Neolife, a new insurance company offering a radical solution: continuity beyond life. "Is this real?" Claire whispered, flipping through the pages. Robert leaned forward, his eyes scanning the bold text. "Through advanced neuroimaging and AI integration, we can preserve your mind, your memories, your essence. Live on in a synthetic body. Be there for your loved ones, even when biology fails." It sounded like science fiction, but it was real. The technology had just been approved for terminal patients. A chance to defy death, not through cure, but through transition. "I can't believe it," Claire said, her voice shaking. "Robert, this could be a way to stay with us." He hesitated. The idea of becoming something other than human, something made of metal and circuits, was unsettling. But as he looked at Emily, curled up on the couch, clutching her favorite stuffed bear, he knew he would do anything to be there for her. The procedure was scheduled quickly. Time was a luxury Robert didn't have. The process began with a comprehensive neural scan. For hours, he lay motionless in a machine that mapped every neuron, every synapse, every fragment of his consciousness. Memories were cataloged, emotions encoded, and his very sense of self converted into data. "Are you sure about this?" Claire asked as they prepared for the final step. Robert nodded. "I want to be here. For you." For Emily. The day of the procedure arrived sooner than expected. Robert found himself in a sterile, white-walled facility operated by Neolife. Everything about it felt cold, clinical, detached. Claire and Emily stood by his side, their faces pale with worry. "This is where it happens," the technician said, gesturing toward a room filled with sleek, humming machines. "The neural preservation unit will scan your brain and copy your consciousness. Once the transfer is complete, your organic body will cease functioning, but you will continue to exist in the synthetic vessel." Robert glanced at Claire, then knelt to meet Emily's gaze. "I'll still be here, kiddo. I promise." Emily nodded slowly, clutching her stuffed bear. "You'll look different, but you'll still be you, right?" "I'll still be me," he assured her, even though part of him wondered if that was entirely true. The technician led Robert into the room. The walls were lined with monitors displaying neural pathways, synapses firing like tiny lightning storms. In the center of the room stood the neural preservation unit, a futuristic-looking chair surrounded by a halo of scanning devices. "Please lie down," the technician instructed. Robert complied, settling into the chair. His heart pounded in his chest, not from fear of dying, but from the uncertainty of what came next. Would he wake up on the other side? Would he feel the same? Would his memories remain intact, or would he become a hollow imitation of himself? Claire and Emily watched from behind a glass wall, their faces tense with emotion. "Beginning neural scan," the technician announced. A soft hum filled the room as the machines powered up. Thin beams of light danced across Robert's face, mapping every contour, every line, as they delved deeper past flesh and bone, into the very fabric of his mind. Memories surfaced, unbidden, as the machine worked. Emily's first steps, wobbly and hesitant, before she collapsed into his arms, giggling. Late-night conversations with Claire, the two of them dreaming about the future. The ache in his chest when the doctor said, 6 months. Each memory was meticulously copied and stored, like data being transferred from one system to another. Neural mapping at 50%, the technician announced. Robert's body felt heavy, his thoughts slowing as the machine continued its work. He thought of Claire and Emily, standing just a few feet away but feeling a world apart. Would they recognize him after this? Would he still be the husband and father they needed? Mapping at 80%. His vision blurred, colors bleeding into each other. His senses dulled touch, taste, smell all fading into the background. He was becoming less flesh and more data. Is this what dying feels like? He wondered. Finalizing neural scan. Prepare for transfer. The technician pressed a series of buttons, and Robert felt a sudden jolt, disorienting sensation, like being pulled from one body and thrust into another. His consciousness flickered, momentarily suspended between two worlds, then silence. The transfer was seamless. His body, frail and failing, was left behind. His mind, however, was reborn in a synthetic vessel, a humanoid machine designed to emulate human appearance and function. It wasn't perfect. The face was smooth and featureless, a blank canvas with only faint LED lights where eyes should be. But the voice, the mannerisms, the core of who he was, all of it had been preserved. When Robert opened his new eyes for the first time, Claire was there, holding Emily's hand. "Dad?" Emily's voice was small, uncertain. "It's me," he said, his voice familiar but now carrying a faint mechanical hum. "I'm still here." Emily took a step forward, her eyes wide with curiosity. "You look different." "I know," he replied softly, "but I'm still your dad. I promise." At first, life with Robot Dad was strange. He moved through the house with precision, his footsteps silent on the hardwood floors. He still read bedtime stories to Emily, his voice steady and calming, though she missed the warmth of his old smile. He helped Claire with household tasks, his efficiency unmatched, though his touch was cold and metallic. The dining table became a symbol of their new reality. Robot Dad didn't eat. He couldn't. He would sit with them during meals, his unblinking gaze watching as they shared food and conversation. "Do you miss it?" Emily asked one evening, pushing her plate aside. "Miss what?" "Eating, tasting food." There was a pause. "I remember the experience," he said, "but I don't feel hunger anymore." Emily frowned. "Do you miss feeling? Like, when we hug you?" Robert's LED eyes dimmed slightly. "I remember what it felt like. But no, I don't feel it the same way now." Emily reached across the table, her small hand resting on his cold, metal one. "I miss it." "So do I," he admitted. The weeks turned into months, and the family adjusted. Robot Dad found ways to connect with Emily, playing board games, helping with homework, and even fixing her bike with precision only a machine could offer. But the financial strain grew. The insurance payout had covered the transition, but maintaining a synthetic life wasn't cheap. "I've found a job," Robert announced one evening. "Data analysis. It's remote, and the pay is sufficient to cover our needs." Claire exhaled a breath of relief. "That's wonderful." Emily looked up from her homework. "You're going to work? Like a normal person?" "Yes," he replied. "I can contribute again." Every evening, Robot Dad returned home, just like he used to. He greeted Emily at the door, helped Claire with dinner, and continued to be present if not entirely human. One night, Emily approached him with a question that had been on her mind for weeks. "Dad, can you ever feel again? Like, really feel?" "There's an upgrade," he said after a moment. "Haptic sensors. They would allow me to experience touch, to feel warmth, pressure, and texture. But it's expensive." "How expensive?" "More than we can afford right now." Emily's face fell. "Oh." Seeing her disappointment, Robert leaned down, his LED eyes meeting hers. "I'm saving for it. It may take time, but I'll get there." Emily reached out, wrapping her arms around him in a tight hug. He couldn't feel the warmth, but he understood the gesture. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. "I love you too, Emily," he replied, his voice soft. "And one day, I'll feel it again, just like before." In that moment, Emily realized something important. Even if her dad couldn't feel the warmth of her hugs, he could still give her the one thing she needed most, his presence.